You ever look at sailing videos and think, well, that looks amazing, but probably costs a fortune? Yeah, I used to think the same thing. Until I started digging in and realized most of these folks aren't rich. They're just smart about how they spend their money. So, in this video, we're going to break down the real numbers. Not the glossy brochure version, but the actual cost of living on a sailboat, and why it might be way more affordable than paying rent on land. Because here's the truth, sailing isn't expensive. Owning the wrong boat, or living like you're in a floating condo, that's expensive. But there's a way to do this that makes financial sense. And I'll even show you a few real paths folks are taking to make the dream work on a budget. Stick around, because by the end, you might realize you can afford this life a lot sooner than you thought. If you think you need a six-figure income to go cruising, let me stop you right there. Most sailors I've met out there are not millionaires. They're just regular folks who figured out how to live differently. There's more than one way to do this, and none of them involve buying a brand new yacht with teak decks and a bow thruster. So let me walk you through 3 budget-friendly paths to the cruising life, each with its own flavor and rhythm. The first one I call the Scrappy Sailor. This is the person who scours Craigslist, digs through Facebook Marketplace, and eventually walks away with a tired but solid little sailboat for under 10 grand. Maybe it's an older Albin Vega or a Pearson Triton. They don't care if the cushions match. What matters is that the hull's sound, the rigging's decent, and the engine turns over. They spend evenings watching YouTube tutorials on fiberglass repair and weekends with a paintbrush and a tube of marine sealant. These folks fix things themselves, learn by doing, and take off as soon as the boat floats and the weather cooperates. It's not fancy, but it's free. Then there's the Downsizer. This is someone who's already got a bit of equity. Maybe they sell the house, the second car, or that camper that's been sitting in the driveway. Instead of retiring to a condo, they buy a reliable 35-foot cruiser like a Tartan or a Catalina 30, something big enough to live aboard, small enough to handle solo or as a couple. They're done with mowing lawns and paying property tax. They want sunsets at anchor and morning coffee in the cockpit. Their boat might cost 30 to 60 grand, but it's a one-time cost. After that, life's expenses shrink dramatically. And finally, there's the digital nomad. These are the folks with online income. Maybe they freelance, maybe they run a business, maybe they teach yoga over Zoom from the foredeck. They don't necessarily spend less, but they earn while they sail, and that gives them flexibility. Starlink and solar panels are their best friends. They're not waiting for retirement. They're working from wherever the boat is anchored. It's not always glamorous, Wi-Fi can be spotty, and deadlines don't care about sea state, but it's freedom on their own terms. No matter which path you choose, the key is shifting your mindset. It's not about being rich, it's about being willing to live simply, embrace a few discomforts, and trade square footage for sunsets. And once you're out there, you'll meet all 3 of these sailor types and realize you fit right in. Let's break it down. What does it really cost to live on a sailboat? Because it's easy to get swept up in the dream of sunsets and sea breezes. But sooner or later, someone's got to pay for the diesel and the bottom paint. The good news? If you're smart about it, boat life can actually cost less than renting an apartment. Way less. Start with the boat itself. You don't need a $1 million yacht. A solid 30 to 35-foot used cruiser, something like a Catalina 30 or an Island Packet 27, can often be found for $25,000 to $50,000, depending on condition and gear. That's less than a new pickup truck. If you've got the savings, great. If not, finance it, and you're looking at payments around $400 to $500 a month over 5 years. Now, where do you put it? Marinas vary wildly. In popular cities, a slip might cost you $1,000 to $1,500 a month. But if you go for a mooring ball, you might pay $200 a month, or anchor for free. Many liveaboards split the difference, mooring during the season, anchoring when they can, and hitting marinas only when needed for shore power or pump-outs. That alone can save you thousands. Insurance is surprisingly affordable. For an older cruising boat, a typical policy runs between $300 and $600 a year, and unless you're crossing oceans or entering races, liability plus hull coverage is usually enough. Then there's maintenance. Here's where being handy saves you big time. If you do your own oil changes, replace your own zincs, and patch your own canvas, you can keep your annual maintenance costs around $2,000 or less. That includes things like haul-outs, bottom paint, filters, and a few odds and ends. Of course, if you ignore maintenance, it gets expensive fast. Fuel costs? Not bad at all. Most sailboats sip diesel. A full tank, say 20 to 30 gallons, might cost $100 and last you weeks or even months if you sail often and only motor when needed. Add in a solar panel or two, and you'll hardly ever need to run a generator. Food and supplies? That's up to you. You can shop frugally and eat well on $300 to $400 a month, or you can go full gourmet and spend double. Most cruisers end up eating simpler meals, cooking on board, and hitting the local markets, especially outside the US, where fresh produce is often cheaper. So, when you look at the big picture, the monthly cost of living on a boat often lands somewhere between $1,000 and $1,900 depending on how you do it. And that covers your rent, your transportation, your utilities, and your lifestyle. It's your whole life afloat. And the view changes whenever you want. Boat life isn't free, but compared to paying $2,000 a month just for an apartment, it can be a lot more affordable and a whole lot more fun. If you're searching for your dream boat on Google or browsing the usual boat listing sites, chances are you're seeing only the top of the iceberg, and usually the most expensive part. The truth is, some of the best boat deals never hit the internet. They're passed quietly from sailor to sailor, inside yacht clubs, boat yards, and local sailing communities. And if you know where to look, you can score a great boat for a fraction of what you'd pay online. The first trick is to physically show up, go where the sailors are. That might be a marina, a boat ramp, or a race night at the local yacht club. People are always talking about boats. Ones they're fixing, ones their friends are selling, ones they're tired of maintaining. If you introduce yourself and ask around, you'll be amazed what pops up. Boat yards are another gold mine. Walk through a yard and you'll see boats that haven't moved in years. Some owners have aged out, moved inland, or simply lost interest. A polite note left on a hull or a friendly chat with the yard manager can turn into a deal you won't find anywhere else. Clubs are key, too. Don't be intimidated by the word yacht. Most clubs are full of regular folks, and joining doesn't cost a fortune. Once you're in, people will recognize you as one of us, and when someone's thinking about selling, they'll prefer to keep the boat in the club, going to someone they trust. That kind of connection can knock thousands off the asking price or even give you access to boats that were never listed. Also, let people know what you're looking for. Sailors love helping other sailors. Tell them your budget, your ideal size, and what you want to do with the boat. Suddenly, you'll have a network of people scanning docks and bulletin boards for you. And don't underestimate the power of crewing on race nights or helping with haul-outs. It's not just fun, it's visibility. You become part of the community. Hidden deals aren't rare, they're just hidden in plain sight. To find them, you've got to leave the screen, shake some hands, and show you're serious. Once people know you're ready, the boats will start coming to you. Most people don't need more money, they need fewer bills. That's the key to getting on a sailboat faster. It's not about waiting until you can afford the perfect setup. It's about changing how you think about spending in the first place. When you start looking at every dollar as something that could buy freedom instead of stuff, you'll be shocked how fast things change. Look around your life right now. How many things are you paying for every month that don't make you any happier? Cable packages, app subscriptions, takeout, the newest phone, that gym membership you forgot you had. None of these are bad on their own, but they add up fast. And they're the reason most people say, "I wish I could sail, but I just can't afford it." The truth is, they're already spending enough to do it. They're just spending it in the wrong places. When you start shifting those dollars into your sailing plan, it adds up. Skip the coffee shop for a year, and that's your autopilot. Cancel your streaming subscriptions, and there's your solar panel setup. Sell the jet ski you barely use, and that could be a dinghy and an outboard. It's not magic, it's just priorities. Every dollar has a job. And if you want to live differently, you've got to give those dollars new marching orders. The other part of the shift is mindset. Most people are taught to think in terms of comfort and convenience. Boat life isn't always either of those. It's wet decks, tight spaces, and learning to appreciate a hot meal after fixing something in the rain. But it's also freedom, sunsets, dolphins off the bow, and the satisfaction of doing more with less. When you stop trying to live like everyone else, you stop needing what everyone else is buying. Freedom comes when your expenses shrink, not when your income explodes. Living on a boat doesn't require being rich. It requires being intentional. So, if you're sitting there thinking you'll start sailing someday, try starting with your spending today. Every cut you make brings you closer to the dock and closer to the life you really want. Out on the water, no one cares how much you paid for your boat. The sea certainly doesn't. Whether you're sailing a shiny 50-footer with air conditioning and a wine fridge or a beat-up 25-footer with peeling paint, the waves treat you the same. The wind doesn't charge more for designer sails, and the sunset doesn't shine brighter just because your teak deck is polished. That's one of the best things about sailing. It levels everyone out. I've shared anchorages with people living on $500,000 catamarans and folks sleeping in refit pocket cruisers that cost less than a used motorcycle. You know what we all had in common? We were out there, watching the same stars, swaying with the same swell, and trading stories over beers in the cockpit. The money stops mattering once you've left the dock. Out there, what counts is your attitude, your seamanship, and your willingness to adapt. People waiting for someday often think they need to save up a fortune to be ready. But the ocean isn't looking for your bank statement. It's waiting to see if you've got the courage to cast off. Some of the happiest sailors I've met didn't have much more than a solid hull, a second-hand sail, and a good anchor. They knew how to live simply, fix things when they broke, and smile through the storms. If you're always chasing the perfect boat, you'll miss the perfect moment. There will always be a better rig, a newer chart plotter, a cleaner hull. But the ocean's still going to be there tomorrow, ready to show you something amazing, if you're willing to go with what you've got. That doesn't mean being reckless, it means being resourceful. Sailing doesn't care if you're rich, it cares if you're present, if you're paying attention, if you're learning from your mistakes and finding joy in the little things like a good tack or a quiet cove. Money might buy convenience, but it can't buy adventure. You earn that by showing up. So if you're sitting at home thinking you can't afford to sail, remember this: the sea doesn't care what you have, it cares that you come. So there it is, friends. Sailing isn't just for the wealthy, the retired, or the lucky few. It's for anyone willing to think differently, live a little leaner, and chase something real. You don't need $100 grand or a boat that turns heads. You just need the guts to start. Maybe you pick up a fixer-upper for a few thousand. Maybe you downsize, simplify, and trade the noise for the wind. However you do it, the sea's out there, wide open and waiting. This lifestyle isn't always easy, but it's honest. And every day you wake up to the sound of water tapping the hull, every time you raise the sail and watch the shoreline fade, you'll remember why you chose it. Not because it was cheap or flashy, but because it was yours. If this video got you thinking, dreaming, or maybe even planning, that's the whole point. Drop a comment, share it with someone who needs a push, and if you want more stories like this, go ahead and hit subscribe. Until next time, keep it simple, keep it salty, and I'll see you out there.